Hey, when it comes to investing in real estate, if you stick to the plan, you stick to the process, you will win. What happens a lot of times is I see newer investors make mistakes by not staying on the path and not following the blueprint. So we're gonna go over a couple of mistakes you've gotta avoid when it comes to investing in real estate. And I'm gonna start with probably the biggest one, and that is the math and the numbers don't lie. So what happens is a lot of times as human beings, we want the deal, we get excited, we get emotional, and we cut corners on the math or we overlook the math. Look, when it comes to buying a piece of investment real estate, the math works or it doesn't. And it's not emotional. It doesn't matter, this property has got this extra 2-car garage, apartment building's got this amenity, or it's got this or it's got that. Those are all great things from a marketability standpoint. It's got nothing to do with the math. Either it pencils or it doesn't, right? When it comes to flipping a property, turning a property, renting a property, whatever the case is, the math works or it doesn't. And one of the mistakes that I see people make is they don't bake in a big enough margin, or they overpay for a property because they want it and they overlook the math. And the quickest way to be out of business in real estate is not understanding the math, number one, and number two, not underwriting to the math. It's all very simple. You either follow the protocol to follow the math or you don't. If you buy a property that doesn't cash flow and you do that multiple times, you're gonna be in trouble. If you buy a property that you're gonna turn and you don't have a big enough margin in, right? Bigger deals get smaller, smaller deals die. So if you buy a property and you don't underwrite enough margin in there, you're not gonna have any margin left over. So that's where I see people make huge mistakes. They get emotional, they throw the math out the window. And another one kind of along with this is they don't underwrite the property properly. So they get excited, I wanna buy it, and they overlook something. When it comes to buying a piece of investment real estate, there is a large inherent risk. You have to underwrite the condition, you have to underwrite the data, you have to underwrite the location, you have to underwrite the math, and everything has to check out. And if you skip a step or you overlook a step or you turn a blind eye to it and you underwrite it incorrectly, that's the biggest way for you to go backwards on a deal. So that's another thing that is a really, really big issue. Another mistake that I see people make is not really looking and understanding the data of the market. So what you want to do, as an example, just for me as advice, if I'm buying an apartment complex, I want the rents to be in the median of the market. I don't want to be the lowest, I don't want to be the highest. Do you know why? Because that's probably, if the data shows you, that's probably where most of your renters in the market are going to be. As an example, if I'm going to buy a flip a property, then what I want to do is be in that median home sale price where the majority of buyers are. If I get too high, I might get stuck. If I get too low, I might get stuck. But I'm just giving you this as generalities of examples. There's data in real estate on everything. Data exists on everything for you to make a decision. Or where I see people make wrong decisions is they don't look at and understand the data. Understand the data of your market. Because the apartment example, you may be in a market where the Class A apartments are the best place to invest, right? It's all data. This goes back to in the beginning, math and data don't lie. The data's not gonna lie to you. So when it comes to investing in real estate, you gotta understand the data. You gotta understand the data of the market. You gotta understand how the data is gonna translate to your investment and translate to your math. That's another place where I see people make mistakes. Another issue that I see investors have is not underwriting from a condition standpoint, right? So I can use this as a small example, big example. You go do a home inspection, you got a $50,000 budget, $30,000 worth of issues come up on the home inspection, and you don't get that $30,000 knocked off of the deal. So now your budget went from 50 to 80. It's gonna put your investment upside down. Same with apartment complex, duplex, anything in between. You've gotta underwrite for the issues that are there. It doesn't go away, right? And when you go to resell this, it doesn't go away. Or if you're buying an apartment complex and you're gonna keep it for a really, really long time, the CapEx and the deferred maintenance that you find in inspections are a real cost. You have to underwrite to that and put it into the math. That's another thing. And another really big mistake is investors not understanding the debt side and the cost of capital. So a lot of times investors will fool themselves with, let me get a better interest rate, but they don't understand the cost of capital. Understanding the debt side and how you stack debt on a deal can be paramount to your success. So let me give you a good example. You could go out today and be looking at a property, and one line of funding will say, I'll give you 10%, and another one will say, I'll give you 12% for the same deal. Your inclination will be, well, let's go with the 10% because it's less money from an interest rate standpoint. The cost of capital, what's relevant, not just the rate. Let's say the total cost of capital is 12%. But the cost of capital total with points, fees, everything they're gonna hit you with is 14. The 10% interest rate deal is actually not a better deal. And where a lot of investors make this mistake is they don't understand this, they don't underwrite this into the deal, and they go out and do a bunch of deals and their true cost of capital is 14, would it could have actually been 12, and that extra 2% per deal stacks up huge, right? Another big issue, well, let me back up a second. It's super important you understand how to stack the debt and understand the cost of capital. Interest rate is just one line item on your cost of capital. You need to know your total cost of capital, and getting the cheapest cost of capital per deal is gonna help you be able to grow and thrive. Another big issue is from a growth standpoint in real estate, the last person's money you want to use is yours. Where I see newer investors make mistake is they get over leveraged on their own liquidity. They don't use things like the Burr method. They don't know how to stack the debt correctly. So they put too much of their own money in. Then they're cash poor and they're freaking out and they're stuck because they can't buy any more properties because they over leverage their cash. Smart investors don't use their money. They use other people's money. Your cash should be the last thing that goes into a deal because you want your cash aside so that you can weather a storm if you have to, or if that one deal comes across that you got to move quick that you can't take to any of your financing sources. And you want your cash sitting somewhere on the sidelines, earning you some type of return, not just sitting in the bank getting you nothing, but you want it in something earning you a return that's liquid, that if you've got to pull it, you can, right? So these are mistakes you need to understand and learn when it comes to investing in real estate, because these mistakes can take your business under. These mistakes can prohibit you from growing as a real estate investor, and they're easily avoidable and they're easy for you to understand and not do it. So if you're out there and you're a real estate investor and you want to learn more about investing in real estate, check out my YouTube channel for other videos where we break down the different ways that you can invest in real estate, and check out my podcast where we talk about a lot of this stuff. All this is free for you. Check me out, follow me on YouTube, check out my podcast, and get more information to help you on your journey of investing in real estate.